I'm presenting the work of the WIFIRE Lab. The WIFIRE Lab is a proud partner of the Global Center between US and Canada. And for years, we've been asked, does WIFIRE work outside of the United States? I think this is a very important initiative to get started on that and discover ways how we can internationally work together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, but mainly on the data part. WIFIRE is started with an NSF project, turned into a lab. Now 40 plus people are in the lab. So it's a work of a big group. Katie and Ozan are somewhere here. So we look at what can be done using science and technology. But at the same time, we work with our partners to identify gaps in different areas. It could be an initial attack, like edge computing, prescribed fire optimization, or grid, and immersive experiences for different types of data, or I'll talk a lot about today what we do in fire weather visualization with SDGE, for instance. The idea here is, can we identify gaps and apply what's doable using science and technology, using the tools we have as expertise in data, computing, and use-inspired workflows and platforms. And then can we then incubate that solution, collaborate and incubate and partner, and then turn that into something we can sustain and scale together into the future. So there's a little bit of a graduation concept from, starting with partnerships of understanding each other and co-developing, co-creating solutions. And at the end of it, graduating it from the lab to the world and still being a part of that innovation landscape. So we built a model over time, and we actually teach it in an institute called Core Institute to cross-sector partners. If anyone is interested, I can definitely talk to you more about it. And right now, WIFIRE doesn't do everything. We actually are really careful about identifying the gaps. What doesn't exist, and can we actually do something in that area? So wildfire response with initial attack is what we started. It's operational in California and Colorado right now. And also, we now are thinking through NASA support how we can do something for extended attack using similar approaches. What are those workflows and decisions to enable extended attack, meaning 3 to 5 days out, rather than the initial attack being the first couple hours of the fire. We also work on beneficial fire, which is prescribed fire, and using fire actually to treat the fuel landscapes that are overloaded. We work with 56 partners. Valerio is one of them. On that to achieve some federal level goals there. And then we have a big focus on data and model sharing. And right now, I'm going to talk about what we've been doing over the last decade or two, but I'll also talk about some initiatives that are coming up. So FireMap is a tool that we are bringing into the WIRE Center as how do we couple fire simulations, quick actually size ups of the first couple hours of the fire, but other models are in there that we could do a little bit longer term, like a couple weeks out type of models as well. To understand how we can actually overlay fire models with the rest of the modeling happening. And then I think there is an opportunity here over the years. We can look into burn-proof 3D at the 3D scale, what we can do with the data and how we can visualize and immersively work with 3D landscapes within the grid infrastructure levels. So these are, burn-proof 3D is a 1 meter resolution 3D environment, rather than FireMap being a 30 meter 2D environment. So it's a map-based environment. And the data platforms, WIFIRE Data and Model Commons is contributing to the center here. I'll talk a bit about that. We are also working with California State to build the wildfire and landscape resilient data hub. So there's a lot of resilience data set, actual regional resource kits, and also interagency treatment system. Interagency treatment system is all the treatment data coming from 19 plus sources, but recently the state made the decision to include the utility data into it. So we are now actually including some utility data in there. Katie is actively working on that as we speak, actually. And great, we have our next speaker here. So there's some research, of course, it's not all operational, it all starts with research, and it shows sort of the satellites with NOAA, and we do a lot of concept demos and using edge computing in the fire context with Department of Homeland Security. We have active prescribed fire management demo network. So it's like a 20+ partners right now. We are doing test burns there. But this all depends on data, and it all is based on the question that how can we actually use weather, fuel, fire modeling, the next generations of that before, during, after a fire, and how can we enable tools to accelerate integration of science into those practical decisions. And there's a continuum here in computing data, but also in fire modeling. Not every fire model is the same. There could be models that could be used for response, could be models that could be used for beneficial fire, but community planning, climate resilience planning, these are all different types of models that require different types of data, same type at different resolutions at times, but also at different computing capacity. So there's a lot to do there in terms of infrastructure that we need to collectively think through. But the different parts of emergency management can benefit from basically all models, all data in the right use-inspired context. However, data is in different applications, and they are built for a purpose. When we have data, typically it's collected or gathered and ingested into a system for a purpose. It's hard to take it out of that. So we need to find a way to keep it there. We lack standards in this domain. They're starting to happen, actually. And transparency. There's a tendency to call things proprietary, even if they're environmental data sets. So how can we be both proprietary and transparent, if that's the real need? If there are compliance requirements, for instance, those are not mutually disjointed things, actually. And poor data quality, governance, and availability because of these. Since there's no data transparency, we don't even know the quality at times. Too much data and duplicated data, the other part of it. We are not data scarce. There's actually so much data, but since the data isn't appropriately coming out and being integrated and curated, it has limited value. So how can we get more mileage out of what we have? Because there's a lot of investment. And this is also due to, of course, siloed data storage, which makes findability and accessibility of data difficult. And because of the lack of standards and transparency, there's also very ad hoc processes for generation and ingestion and processing of data. So how do we create more defined processes, standardized processes for data ingestion, curation, use, rules around its reuse? And then, of course, there's limited interoperability due to all of these. Data becomes a token of collaboration when things are open, but it has the opposite adverse effect when it's not. And I think because of all these challenges, data integration and stakeholder collaboration is limited, and doing some things can improve that. But overall, to have scalable solutions and collaborate around solutions together, to think through what are the gaps, we need to solve these challenges. So WIFIRE sort of had this vision from the beginning that can we create a hub for data in a way that it's federated. So data stays, that means in its sources as is, gets to do what it's intended for its original purpose. But at the same time, can we create a collective infrastructure, a data infrastructure? It doesn't exist, right? Data is very conceptual in that case. That's like a common, based on common vocabularies and common metadata that we can start cataloging, ingesting, curating data together. And also at the same time for the models, create benchmarks, improve both for data and models, their findability, accessibility, use, reuse, interoperability. And while we do that, of course, the AI opportunities happened over the last, especially over the last 5 years. This is a big subject on, is it interpretable? Can we actually explain what we are looking at? And is data AI ready? You know, does it come in a way that others can take it and create more insights out of it? And once we do this, I think we'll improve reuse significantly. But to do that, we also need to talk about what does authorization mean? What does reuse, repurposing of data mean? What are the rules of engagement? So this is, since data federation comes a lot in this context, just to make sure everybody is on the same page on that, this is actually a concept that thinks that data gets coordinated where it started. If this is an enterprise system, for instance, it stays there. But these range of resources, and through converting the language of those resources into a common language, schemas or ontologies or knowledge networks that to link data, we can create actually a model about all that's virtual. So that's what federation is. In a truly federated data environment, we can, of course, have some data that's added value data in a federated data system, but data stays where it's at. So it also helps us with having the last, valuable versions of data, but also avoiding data duplication. So, and the data is copied. If something is fixed, you need to fix it everywhere. That type of complexities go away. And also we provide this way an optimized, unified access to data and models. When I say commons, I'm really talking about data and model commons. So we can do the same to models, right? Talk about their resolution, what they're intended for. And in an optimized, effective way. So WIFIRE Commons, in that sense, was that vision of the WIFIRE Commons when we started, was that central part of this whole picture, all those cataloging, ingestion, curation, AI readiness. And that's what we are working towards. So when you go to WIFIRE Commons, you'll see an interface like this. And the idea here is there's data and models. There's an AI gateway that curates data collectively for a collaborative group. And then those data are integrated into workflows that can be integrated into user-inspired systems like FireMap and BurnPro 3D and others. You've seen a demo from Ozan. He actually was able to catalog WiFi query WiFIRE catalog and display all the data on a map. So if you're interested, he's around. Ozan, raise your hand. I thought in the back, yeah. So he can show you that it was done under a internship this summer in the Wired Center. So data capabilities, I'll talk about our collaboration SDG&E. I know I have 2 minutes left, but I think there's also things to understand. There are very different opportunities here that we could collectively work on in user-inspired platforms, computing, community building. What we've done with SDG&E over the last more than a decade now, actually, is cataloging the 17 environmental data sets SDG&E produces on an instant basis. So 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer weather runs, for instance. Before that, it had to sit in a catalog of SDG&E, but it was internal. So now everyone can access the data through interfaces and APIs and find data and combine it with other data sets. This is important because typically for utilities, it's not the business model to share the data. But if we can share your data and improve, would that improve collaboration between utilities and the science community or in between utilities themselves? We are seeing a great number of improvement in access to these data sets. This is, I think, a couple months old right now. And what we've been able to do this with SDG&E is this WX map. It's a weather visualization map. And I was recently there and I was able to snap a photo in the operational center. SDG&E built this amazing center. Brian, I was really floored by how much in the center was happening. But one of the things that when you get in was this monitoring interface, SCADA style monitoring interface. So this doesn't just have SDG&E data. It has data from all other NOAA and Mesones West and other resources. So it's a full weather monitoring environment. And now we are working on a 3D version of that to combine it with other environmental level fuel and infrastructure and other data sets. And that was a congressional demonstration. It's a good policy communication tool to that staffer looking into the immersive forest at the Capitol in May. So we are working on the 3D weather visualizations that look like this. So this is, for instance, aerial LiDAR, and that's the terrestrial LiDAR in the context of it. So if you click on that, the view changes to have this more detailed picture of what's on the ground rather than the canopy level dendrometrics of the data. And you see fire models and weather models can be overlaid into it to understand some behavior and look at it. And we are also doing vegetation management with this data, but also to be able to do that, to get asset data, for instance, and vegetation data. These are different parts of SDG&E, and suddenly after the map was there, I think there was more collaboration because suddenly the value of sharing data was there. So we were able to privately use those sets. So open doesn't mean open to everyone, open to the right group of people so they can collaborate around data. And we also did some studies together on, for instance, deep learning for smoke detection. The importance for Wired Center here, 1 minute, is we don't do it just for ourselves. This is actually a data set that we are generating with the training data on the smoke so that we can make camera data sets now AI ready, so to say, so others can use the camera data and the smoke training data so they can build things that both SDG&E and others can use. So that's the AI readiness context coming in. Similarly, we do these for simulations of different sorts, so others can build and benchmark physics-guided machine learning models. In some contexts, these can actually replace AI models. You can have resource previews. This is actually ASTCP data. And this become really useful for science communication. This is sort of like an animation the students have done, for instance. But there's all kinds of things here. Computer games, virtual walks. We do board games, for instance, for public communication. And when you go to actually the SDG&E data center, you will see many other professional games, right? There's an opportunity when you have the data. I think these things can happen. I'll say 2 things as an announcement. One, WIFIRE Commons, we still would like to keep it. It's a hosting service as well as a commons service at the moment. We are trying to elevate it 1 level up and trying to link other commons because we were able to change the culture. So to say, for instance, there's a WIFIRE Commons in the insurance community happening. So we started recently under a congressional redirect. We are calling it actually now WIFIRE Science and Technology Commons because science is a big part of it. So we would love to collaborate, reach out if you'd like to. And then we are also expanding to different communities to NDP through National Data Platform, which Manish will talk about in a second. Thank you.